What's up, everybody? Come on in, folks. Welcome in, y'all. My name's Adam Manis. Happy Saturday. We're back on a Saturday here live at Open Studio. We have 4 minutes and 40 seconds till we begin this guided practice session. Before we get going, please put in the chat where you are in the world. I'm in gorgeous, cicada-infested St. Louis, Missouri. Oh my goodness. You should see the cicada shells on my front lawn right now. It is disgusting. Anyway, how's it going, y'all? What's up, Paul? What's up, Colleen? What's up, Gene? What's up, Dan? Where are you in the world? Belgium's in the house. Good to see you too, Colleen. California's in the house. Garden City, New York's in the house. Wendy's in the house. Luxembourg. Terry's in St. Louis. You know what I'm talking about. It's loud out there. Rochester, New York. Rochester, I'm coming for you. In June, I think, I'll be there for the Jazz Festival. Sweden's in the house. Manila, what's going on? Antarctica better tune in. I agree. We have one. No, actually, I think they're not going to be in Antarctica. They said that they're leaving that beautiful roads alone in the cold. Philadelphia, Southern California, Scotland, Maryland, South Italy, which is just gorgeous, South Italy. I played at this weird little club in the heel of the boot once. It was weird and great. I love that part of the world. Ventura, California, San Francisco, California, London, Seattle, Stockholm, Germany. More California. Californians are in the house. Argentina is in the house. Toronto's in the house. Toronto. Hollywood Jazz Festival. What's up? London. London. Idaho, London. Is that the same person? Pavel, you're screaming London. More Germany, more France. Ooh, the Montreal Jazz Festival. Yeah, it'd be fun to go up there. Again, I say it every time someone's in here from Montreal, but it's just one of my favorite cities. I could move to Montreal. I could live there just on the food alone. It's amazing. Dublin's in the house. Florida's in the house. What's up, Brooklyn? Barry's in Brooklyn. Gaza's in the house. Chicago is in the house. London, more London. Tokyo. Phil from Cary. What's going on, Phil? Jack's got the foot on the pedal. Zimbabwe. Pavel says, what's your favorite city? That would be New York City. I don't think there's a greater city that I've been to. Followed closely by Tokyo for me. Tokyo has my heart. Some of the most fun I've ever had has been in Tokyo and New York. Czech Republic is in the house. Kennesaw, Georgia. You got to lean into the saw. Kennesaw. And it helps if you can whistle your S. Kennesaw. That's not even McConaughey territory. I'm doing it wrong. Nigeria's in the house. Nigeria is somewhere I've never been but would love to go to. As is Indonesia. I have some friends from Indonesia. Texas is always in the house. Texas representing. Always. Barbados representing. Small but mighty Barbados. L. Zeppelin Rock says, do you like living in St. Louis? It's my hometown. I love it here. My family's here. Both my wife and I are from here. We got Open Studio here. There's some really great musicians that are still here from here. So I do love living in St. Louis. I am not like, I think I could like living almost anywhere. I love it everywhere. Kind of not to be too whatever, but there's charms everywhere, you know. I mean, there's a couple places I've been to that I wouldn't maybe want to go back to, but not many, I'll be honest. Like everywhere has this little unique charm, you know. Small and mighty indeed, right? Cool. Boston's a nice place to live. That's where Jen is. Virginia's a nice place to live. That's where Dr. Mouse is. Siberia, sunny Siberia? I don't know if you're there, I dance. I'm not buying it. It does look beautiful, Siberia. It's a long way away. Peter says, "Sue me. I love the whole world." It's him making fun of me a little bit. But no, I don't love the whole world, but I do. I don't know. I've never been anywhere and been like, ugh, gross. Except for, well, I'm not even gonna say, but you know, it's all about finding the right food, finding the right folks, finding the right music. You'll be okay. Soul's in the house. Soul is somewhere I'd like to go. Big time. Big time. Speaking of people and food, that looks fun. All right. Let's get to it. We've got an immersion happening today. So let's dive right in, shall we? You know what? I'm going to leave this little... We're going to leave the GPS up as we dive in. Here we go. I'm not even going to clap because we're going to leave all this up. Thanks for being here, everybody. Get to your instrument. Let's get practicing. So we're going to be working on inversions today, and specifically bass inversions and slash chords. These are super fun because, you know, you could take something like this. You could turn it into something like this. Take something like this. That sounds great, but you can mess with a little bit, maybe something like this. Those are inversed chords. And that's what we're going to be working on today. My name is Adam Manis. Welcome to Open Studio. These are our live guided practice sessions. And today we are talking all about immersion, specifically inverting your root movements to make for a little bit more interesting chord progressions. This guided practice session is brought to you by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com to go on a deeper dive and start your 14-day free trial today. Like I said, this is a guided practice session, so you're going to want to get to your instrument ASAP. This is going to work on piano. This is going to work on guitar. This will even work on vibraphone and accordion. I'm looking at you, accordion players. I know you're all over the world, so join us here as we work on our chord inversions. And this is really going to be used for a couple of things. We can use these as substitutions when we're playing just run-of-the-mill chord progressions. We can use this in our composition, in our arranging. It's just a way to take a basic Bob chord progression and make something a little bit more out of it by changing the bass. And in the case of slash chords, by changing the chord, which is what we'll talk about a little bit here. So a couple of things before we get going. Hey, like and subscribe. You know you want to. We're going live here. We appreciate you. Every time we get a like and subscribe, it helps to grow the awareness of our channel, and we get to do cool stuff like this. So keep it going. Help us keep these going by liking and subscribing. Also, by the way, there is a PDF for this session, so you can see all of these chord changes and how you might use them for yourself. You can download that in the description at any time and follow along. We will have, of course, the notation on screen for you. I've got a Doppio keyboard set up that I know Peter Martin is stoked about. Here's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing some bass inversions. We're going to add a little modal interchange, and we're going to be doing some slash chords, and that's it. This is a very simple session and almost a beginner-focused session. But these are things that I do all the time when we do things like the different chord progressions. And I hear people ask me about, or maybe they don't have as much knowledge as they could about this very simple idea. It's literally just changing the bass note of your chords to a different note of the chord. And it changes everything. We keep the general structure of the sound of the chord together, but the whole feeling of the music can emotionally change by moving the root movement around. It's such an easy thing to do, and it's often overlooked, and that's why we're doing it. So let's get to it here. Before we get going, please take a big deep breath. Take the biggest deep breath that you've taken all day. I mean that. Really enjoy this. Breathe with me here. Do not cheat yourself on the out breath. Let that exhale go all the way out. All the way. Let's do one more. And this is a way of breathing that is going to connect us to the moment. It's going to really help us focus on our practice. And it sounds weird, but to do that, we're going to do a little bit of gratitude practice with this next deep breath. This is not some kind of woo-woo thing. This actually helps to focus us in a way that is very, very practical. So it could be anything. It could be just for being up and walking around today, you could be grateful. For being here, practicing the thing we love to be practicing, you could be grateful. On our next exhale, I want you to think about all of the things or one of the things that you're grateful for right now in this moment. Ready? Big deep breath. Don't cheat the exhale. Let it go. Oftentimes when I do this and I'm teaching these classes, I think about how grateful I am that this is my job. It's like, it's a dream. It's incredible that I get to be here with you practicing these things. I couldn't be more grateful for that. So, and again, this is not just to make us feel tingly, although it kind of does. It's also to ground us to the moment, because whenever we're practicing music, oftentimes, for many of us, me included, there's this little voice in our head that's like, you're not doing this right, and you'll never be this, and you'll never do that. Having a little bit of gratitude for what we actually have helps to quiet that voice and focus on what we need to practice, which is the music, which brings me to our very next screen, which is this screen. Bass inversions. How do you like that? We got a little Doppio set up. I've heard from some of you that you would have liked a light up keyboard. And so this is what we're working with. Now, when we talk about inversions for this specific practice session, we're not exactly talking about triadic inversions or even inversions of seventh chords. Those are inversions, and those are important to know. We're talking more about the inversions of chord progressions themselves, about the root movement inversions. So we're not going to be talking about C major triad in the second inversion or G dominant 7 in the first inversion or anything like that. We're going to be more talking about when you see a chord like C major, you can have the C as the root, the bass. You can also have an E as the bass, as in our second measure here. You can also have the G, the fifth of the bass, right? So each one of those C chords is a C chord, but we either have the C as the bass, which is the first note of the triad, the E is the bass, which is the second note of the triad, or the G is the bass. Now, one thing that you're going to notice me do when I play these inversions, whenever the third is in the bass, and oftentimes when, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but whenever the third is in the bass, I don't play the third in the rest of the chords. So if we have C over E, I more than not don't put the E in the triad above. I'll put another G, I'll put another C. Sometimes I'll put the 9, a mu chord, open studio mu. Sometimes I'll do that instead of doubling the third. You double that third, it kind of weakens the sauce. Right? It's kind of like it waters down your thick sauce of the chord, specifically when the third is in the bass. So that's just a note here. You're going to hear me play a lot of thirds in the bass on this session, and I'm probably not going to put that third, if it's in the bass, I'm not going to put it anywhere else. It's just going to be on the bass. If we look at our second line here, this is our G7 chord, right? Now we can, of course, do all the inversions of the chord, but again, we're talking about bass inversions here. So when there's 4 notes in a chord, you can have the root or the bass note as the third. And notice I'm not doubling that third anywhere in the chord. You could have it in the fifth, and I will double the fifth because it's not as bad. I'll double the fifth in the root, no problem. And you can have the seventh. You could easily double the seventh. I often don't. Sorry, there's the seventh. So like if I have a G7 over F, I'll play a G triad in my right hand, and I'll play an F in my left hand. This is going to get a little tangled as we get more into the slash chord bit, but this is a great rule to follow. There's nothing wrong, by the way, with putting the third in the chord with your right hand, or the seventh in the chord with your right hand when they're in the bass. I'm sure people are rushing right now to their scores to find examples of Mozart doing that, and people who are much better at orchestrating doing that than me. There's every rule to be broken, of course, but just for me personally, I like a nice, clean, tight, punchy sound without that doubled third, or sometimes that doubled seventh. Just my 2 cents there. Okay, let's take a look at what this looks like in practice, because this can be, I think, a game changer. What we like to talk about when we're creating chord progressions or we're doing chord substitutions at all is we like to think about the most basic version of what we're doing, and then we start expanding on that. Because if you can take something as simple as what we have here, right, which is a very simple chord progression, 1 4 1 5 6 5 1, and by that I mean we're in the key of C. C is the 1 chord. Right, 4 is the F chord, that second chord, that's 4. Back to 1, C, the tonic. To the 5 chord, a G, right? To the 6 chord, A minor, the relative minor. And back to the 5. And to the 1. Let's just play this with our metronome. We're using Drum Genius, which is an older app that I like for all these great. This is the beat from Dr. Funkenstein. Parliament is in my top. Parliament Funkadelic, that's my top 10 band for me. And so this is from Jerome Bigfoot Braley's beat on Dr. Funkenstein, and I could live in this groove for hours. Let's just play this very simple chord progression here in the key of C. Ready? Play with me. 1, 2, 3. It's going to be very, very simple here. Triads. Let's do that again so you can hear that. It doesn't get more basic than this, right? So 1 4 1 5, hitting all these major landmarks. One more time so that we can hear it. Little foreshadowing there. So let's look at what would happen if we used some of our bass inversions on this very simple chord progression. So let's look at the differences here. So on the 4 chord, that F, we're going to put the bass in the 3rd of the chord, right? An F major triad is F, A, and C, right? So we'll just put the 3rd in the bass. And then we go back to the 1 chord, we're going to put the 5 in the bass. Now look at what this does to the root movement. Instead of, it gives us this direction, right? It gives us another melody. I had this amazing ear training teacher when I was at the New School in New York City named Armin Danielian, who talked a lot about using the root movement as a secondary melody. And it is a super great trick for having incredible sounding chord changes. So here we've got that F over A to the back to the 1, but over the 5 of the 1, right? So the 5th tone of C major, and then we're going to resolve that to the G. Regular A minor, now the G over its 3rd, back up to the C. So this gets us this root movement. Listen to the difference of just the root movement. Here's the original. Very jumpy, very skippy. Now listen to the more melodic line that you can create using these bass inversions. It's like a little melody that is a lot more singable, frankly. And listen to what this sounds like in the beat. 2, 3, and. Listen to that again. Let's listen to the original again. Nothing wrong with this, by the way. This sounds great. Now the root movement that has the inversions. One more time on this one. I mean, that's gorgeous. You know, that's as good as music can get for me. Like that's the thing that I get when I'm working on new music. I get chills doing this kind of stuff. I'm getting little chills right now. YouTube's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how good that is. Let's do another one. Let's have another go. So let's see what we can make out of the same chord progression. Again, we have the 1, 4, 1, 5, 6, 5, 1. Same thing as the top, right? But now we're going to change. I got to hold on, a little coffee here. Now instead of the third in the bass for the F, we have the fifth in the bass for the F. So we're going to stay on that C, you know? Back to the C. And now we have that G with the third in the bass, right? And again, I'm not going to double that B, the third, in the rest of the chord. I've got G, B, G here to our A minor. We're going to take advantage of some bass inversions by making a little walk up. We've got G, and then we'll do G7 over F. A little walk down, I should say. So G, G7 or F to C over E. So we're going to end actually with the third in the bass because we're going back to C. Let's hear how this sounds. 2, 3, and. Yeah. Play the original, the top line, just with all of the roots, top line. Now let's play the second line with our first set of inversions. Now our third line with another example of inversions. Let's do that third line again. That's so good. That's good. Okay. Okay. You see what we're working with here now, YouTube. We see what we're working with. It's pretty incredible. Boy, oh boy. Let's check out another version of a chord change. So let's do something with a little modal interchange. So modal interchange is a concept that we've worked here with Open Studio a bunch. It's a great way to get outside of a diatonic key. So the key of C major, we're going to borrow all of these notes in the middle, or these chords in the middle, are from the key of E flat major, or you might consider that C minor as well. A lot of people call it C minor. I like to think of it as either C minor or E flat major. And so you can do... Here's the tonic of C. Everything else is from E flat major. So G minor, right? Or C minor, right? Except for that G, that's going to get us back to C, right? So we're borrowing from C major to C minor or C major to E flat major, however you want to think about it. Let's just hear the basic chord progression. 2, 3, and these are all root position here, right? So we're just going to keep the roots. This is good. Kind of sounds like a 90s indie rock song, maybe. Just triads, nothing super interesting. One more time, just to get it in our head. Let's hear how this would sound with some inversions in the bass. So, hang on. There we go. So our second line here. So check it out. So on the G minor, we're going to put the third in the bass. On the F minor, we're going to put that A flat in the bass, right? So this immediately gets us a more melodic, like Armin Danelian said, like this more melodic bass movement instead of. There's nothing wrong with that. That's melodic as well, but this sort of scale movement gets us this really cool effect. So C minor, G minor, F minor over A flat. Then our B flat, we're going to put another third of the bass going to E flat. So B flat over D. And then we're going to walk it down G7 over D to C. Let's hear how this sounds. It's good. 2, 3, and. Play with me here. It's totally different vibe, totally different vibe. Play the top line. Play the top line and see the difference. Good. Very good, actually. Try some of the inversions. Something very compelling about that. Last line again. Second line. Just giving your bass movement a little bit more to do than just plop those roots down. Again, listen to the difference of the root movement. Here's the top line. Right? Boom, ba, boo, ba, boom, ba, boom. A lot of up, down, up, down. Listen to this. Ba, 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 boo, ba, doo, da. It's melodic as all get out. Like if you played it up here, that's a melody as the root movement. Man, that's so good. Okay, let's try another one with the same chord progression, just like we did before. Here is, we're going to go in the opposite direction. So we have our C, G minor over D, F minor 7 over the 7th, E flat, right? That's kind of interesting. We can do that as a 7th. B flat over F, E flat over G, G, another G7 over B. So the whole root movement is just a scale going up. This is what is so kind of great about using bass inversions, is you do get some really cool movements in directions. Let's try this. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and. I mean, come on. Play the top one so you can hear how it sounded originally. This is where we came from. Same chords, just different inversions of these triads. Profoundly different effects. Let's do the second one. Just hearing that root have this different direction. Finally, let's do this third one. Third one more time. That's just using all the notes of these triads. That's not doing anything super crazy, right? We're just taking 3 notes and just saying, okay, well, you can have the bass be this, you can have the bass be this, or you can have the bass be this. And look at what you're able to do. So, I mean, you could literally take something as simple as just a 1, 4, 5 and have like a bunch of different combinations of really great sounding chord progressions. In fact, the next time you try to write a song, see if you can challenge yourself to do a little bit more with these bass inversions because they're just so handy. Now, some people might ask, well, okay, so I see that this is like G minor over B flat. Are these slash chords? These are not slash chords. So the difference between a bass inversion and a slash chord, they're very similar, but the difference that you might say is that a bass inversion has the one of the notes of the actual chord is in the bass. So like again, with the C major, it's either one of these notes of this triad. So it's either C, E, or G is the bass. A slash chord is not quite that. A slash chord is not that either. A slash chord means that there's a chord over a bass note, and that bass note is not part of the chord. So here's a bunch of different kinds of slash chords with a C in the bass. So our first one is the most common that you usually see, B flat over C, right? So this is a major triad, a whole step down from the root of C. It's often called also like a C7 sus or a C11 sus. C9 sus maybe. Sorry. And again, so the B flat triad doesn't contain a C. The C is not in the chord above. Now, this is also not a polychord. A polychord is a whole other thing. A polychord are two chords, different chords stacked on top of each other. And in fact, polychords are fairly rare because you can mostly get polychords by either just doing a regular chord symbol with a lot of different extensions or altered extensions, or doing a slash chord or a root inversion. Actually, true polychord, you never see them, but you don't see them nearly as much as you see inversions and slash chords. So this is not a polychord. The first letter, the B flat, is a chord, right? That's the chord. The second letter, whether that's to the right or on the bottom, depending on how it's written, that's just the bass. That's just one note. So the first letter is an actual chord. The second letter is just a bass note, right? So that's how we can tell the difference between how to read these inversions and these slash chords, right? So these slash chords are, I think, the most common, and some of these have overlap with inversions, right? So there could be some where you could be like, is that like, we'll get there, but there could be debate if it's an extension. Is it a extension with the bass on the bottom, or is it a slash chord? It kind of depends on the context, actually. So our B flat over C, like I said, is the most common. This is often called like a C7 sus or a C9 sus, and it's used in a dominant context. Like you've heard this a billion times like this, right? B flat over C. So instead of a C7, you would use this. Our next slash chord is where we're kind of getting into, well, is this just an inversion or is this a slash chord? So it's a D over C, right? Now this gets us a very Lydian sound, that sharp 11 sound. Waters of March. Antonio Carlos Jobim loved this chord. You could say too, we use this as like a D7 over C. So this could be an inversion, but sometimes it's truly, you want a D triad over C and it's a C chord, right? It's meant to be. That's not really a D7 in context. That's more of a C Lydian sound. So again, it depends on sort of the context of what's happening around. If you're going right to the triad, right? That's a great use. Again, that sharp 11, flat 5, however you want to think about it. D triad over C, beautiful use of it. So we have whole steps on either side of our root, right? B flat from the C, D from the C. Now here's fifths from the root. So the G over C, this gives us a big major 9 sound. And again, notice that C is not part of the G major triad. So this is not an inversion. This is a slash chord. G minor over C. This is one that I love. Very funky, also kind of like a sus, but there's really no third in this chord. It's just a G minor triad over C. And this is used a lot by like French composers like Ravel and Debussy. Love this kind of chord. It is a friggin' gorgeous chord. So don't sleep on the G minor over C. Now here's another one that's a little bit debatable depending on the context. D minor over C. Is this just a D minor 7? Yeah, it could be. It could be. But again, if you're using it in this context, I don't think that's a D minor over C, or a D minor 7. I think that's a D minor triad over a C, right? It's more in that sort of pedal range. And then there could be also contexts where it's a walk down, right? You really want to emphasize the D minor triad. It's technically, I guess, a D minor 7, but again, let's not get hung out in the weeds where we call all these things. We're really just going for the sound. This next one is perhaps my favorite. This is what we call around the open studios as the unicorn chord, B over C. This is like a C diminished triad with this B on top. So you hear this in a lot of jazz compositions. Misty, right? D over E flat. It often resolves to itself. We call this the tonic diminished. This resolves back to C. It's gorgeous too. I love that so much. Someone in the chat just said yuck. I sincerely disagree. Yum is more like it. Our next one could be a yuck for some of you who don't have the stomach for this. D flat over C. Again, it wants to resolve to C. B over C and D flat over C, they want to resolve to C. They can also be used just for tension, honestly. The yuck that we got in the chat that's the appropriate response sometimes that the composer wants for this. They want to stank. Ugh. That's funky. That's not, ugh. That doesn't smell good in a good way. So those are kind of some basic, very, very, very common slash chords. Let's see how we can use these very, very common slash chords. Let's start here. Got a basic chord progression. Look familiar? Let's play through it a couple times. This was the first chord progression we used with the inversions. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 6, 5, to 1. Let's do it again. All right, let's see what we can do with some slash chords in this situation, because this is a whole different vibe now. So if we look at here, our second line, same chord progression, but we're going to be using some of our slash chords. So C to the 4 chord. Let's use a big Lydian sound here. This is something that Stevie Wonder used in You Are the Sunshine of My Life. So this could be, you could call this a G7 over F, but the root movement is still that F. Maybe thinking of a Lydian sound. To C over E. To G sus. Right, a G suspended triad over D. Kind of combine some things here. A minor, E minor over A, F over G. That's right. Yuck indeed. Check this out though. Listen, just listen. Listen. 2, 3, I want to talk about that third measure here. Because that's really giving us some beautiful voice leading here. One more time. So look at our third measure, starting on the A minor. Look at this. That is very close. That B over C. That's a little, that could be, but that A minor to E minor, right? F over G to D minor. We're just moving a couple of notes on each of these. And that B over C, like we're going from D minor over G to B over C to resolving. I think it's gorgeous. Man, that's so good. One more time here. 1, 2, 3, and... Creepy. All right, let's look at another example of this. So much fun. Here's another way that we can use some of these slash chords. So the G over the C, to an inversion here. This isn't a slash chord, F over A, right? That's an inversion. The A is the third of F. To another inversion, the D minor over G, giving us that nice kind of suspension sound. A minor, F over G, G7 over F. I think this is going to be pretty. Let's try it. 2, 3, and... Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Do that again, that third line. So much beautiful movement just by adding some of these slash chords. Ending with that C over E. And a little F over G to get us back. Cheeky tritone sub for the chat. That's just for the chat. Little cheeky tritone sub. Okay, let's try this with our modal interchange and just see what this sounds like. Adding some slash chords. Again, just to remind you, here's our original modal interchange progression. Play with me here. 3, and... Using chords of C major and C minor. See what we can do here with a little bit of the slash chords. Let's try this second example. 1, 2, 3, and... Come on now. Stop. What is that? What is going on here? Okay, so here we have our C. We've got our inversion. This isn't a slash chord. This is an inversion, right? G minor over B flat. Now, C minor over F. That's that minor from the fifth of F to A flat over B flat. Kind of some suspension happening that just makes it so foggy, like misty. You know what I mean? Like put on a London fog overcoat and get yourself a steaming hot cup of coffee or something and go take a walk on a damp street. I'll stop. To the B flat over E flat, D minor over G, back to the C. Let's play it again. It's too pretty. 2, 3, and totally different vibes. Totally different vibes. One more time, because it's just so dang pretty. All right, let's take one more look at what we could do with our slash chords using our modal interchange. Again, chords from the key of C and the key of C minor. So here we're going to go straight back to the root and just create a walk up. Let's actually, we forgot to look at the bass movements. Like, so here's the original bass movement. Again, very jumpy. Nothing, again, there's nothing right or wrong with any of this. It's just different flavors, right? Check out the second one. Hold on. So still pretty jumpy. And this third one, that is a melody. I'm going to use a very special slash chord here at the end, but we have our C major, our G minor, inversion here, F minor over A flat, our C over B flat to F over B flat to E flat over B flat, right? So this B flat chord with all the slashes make this beautiful triadic movement. D flat over C flat. Shut up, come on. That's the tritone sub. Sneaky tritone sub. Cheeky tritone sub to our C. It's like a D flat 7 over C flat. All of these resolve beautifully. Check this out. 2, 3, and. One more time. Come on. What I love about that D flat over C flat, it's got D flat going to C and B going to C. So that's that contrary motion, one going one direction, the other going the other. One more time here. One more time, you got it. Everybody, another guided practice session, another super fun session here on a Saturday. Thank you so much for your work today. I will now take some questions from the chat or some comments. I'll take some suggestions. You got any insults? We can do it all. Let's go. It's Saturday morning, and that was super fun. And you know what I love about this whole inversions slash chord things? It's not complicated. There's no math. It's just the notes that you can put there, and it sounds incredible. Incredible. Thank you, Chayla. Good to see you, Chayla. Thanks for being here on a Saturday. Clint says, do you recommend just experimenting with different bass lines or any methods go by? So what we did, Clint, is if you just write a simple chord progression like what we did. So I just wrote 2 simple chord progressions, and we got, what do we get? 9 different variations of that by using inversions and slash chords. So just start by writing a very simple chord progression and then go from there. Yeah, Alexa says, love that last one, especially great for composing. Yeah, totally. They're all really good for composing, but yeah. Chayla says, Adam's caffeinated. Let's rip. I think I just got some good sleep. You ever like when you get like a really good sleep session and then you wake up like, come on now. What's going on? That's how I'm feeling today. Full disclosure. Got my Edna Mode. Edna Mode mug. What's up, Ukraine? Ukraine's in the house. McP, the scientific mystic, says, "Can we just do the first part over and over again? Like it was like church on Saturday." Thank you. Yeah, super fun. Any other questions? Anything? Dan says, "Just enough for me." I was hoping this would resonate with some people who might not be thinking about these things, but these are very simple things you can do like today. You know what I mean? Is it Edna Moog? Edna Mode. I like Moog better. Joshua says, "Hey, what is the main thing you should focus on in the beginning? Is it worth looking at all these vids with new licks on YouTube?" Joshua, there's no one right way to like approach doing your thing. I will say, I just had a great discussion yesterday that's going to be a podcast episode with Peter Martin, and we talked about how you can't information your way to becoming a better player alone. So the problem with YouTube is it's just like all information. There's too much information. It's a lot of information. And, you know, okay, so we all have YouTube, so we're all great players, right? That's not how it works. Like, Joshua, you probably have fundamentals right now that you've ignored fully, right? Can you do everything you can do in all 12 keys? Can you do everything you can do in different inversions? Can you do everything that you know how to do at different tempos, like really, really slowly or really, really fast, or in 5 or in 7? Like, those fundamentals are, you can work on that all year on stuff you already know, and it's going to make you a much better player than if you just go out and get another voicing or another scale. My 2 cents. And don't worry, the voicings and scales will be here for you when you're ready to move on. Again, Joshua says, "Is transcribing the main thing we should do, or could you give us like a regimen to do?" So Joshua, we do at Open Studio, we do Open Studio Pro, which is our regiment, which is our live Zoom classes several times a day. But again, that's because it's about doing, it's about experiencing. It's not about gathering information. It's just about living a musical life. And so that's what we're trying to push here, is like, there's no finish line. There's no like, I go to bed a good pianist and wake up a great pianist, or I go to bed a good musician and wake up a great musician. There's no one bit of information that's going to be the key to unlocking the secret to everything. It doesn't work like that. It's just, can you design your life in a musical way so that you're touching music a little bit every day, and it's a part of your full expression as a human being, not just a goal to be achieved. Alfie says, "So with regards to some kind of homework from this, you can take a simple chord progression and move the bass line around with inversions." Yeah, 100%. Just compose a very simple chord progression like what I did. I did 1 4 1 5 6 5 1, right? Those are just very basic. That's probably a million pop tunes, right? And see what you can get by just changing the inversions. And then try using slash chords. And then you can try some more advanced chord progressions or richer chord progressions, or whatever you want to do. Take a song. Actually, a great way to do this would be to take a different song. You know, if you're a jazz musician, take like Stella by Starlight. See if you can use different inversions. I'm trying to just get different inversions of the chord changes to Stella by Starlight. Maybe some slash chords. It's a more simple song than that, but just taking something you already know and working on inversions through the changes. Jen says, "I love how much these are mood changers." It's so crazy, isn't it? Just changing what the root is. The root completely changes the vibe, the emotional tone, you know? Jen says, "I love this in Overjoyed as well." Great example. Oh, nice. Joel Aled says, "I've been with OS Pro since pandemic. It's been an absolute best thing." That's a very sweet thing to say. It is a really great community. We got a lot of OS Proers on here. Colleen, I'm looking at you. Chayla, I'm looking at you. Alexa, I'm looking at you. Anybody else? We got any other OS Proers in the house? Oh, we got Cary, North Carolina's in the house. I was going to say Cecil. I'm used to reading it. Phil and Cary. Dr. Mouse is struggling with general inversions. What's a good practice with this? So just for general inversions, there's nothing you can do except for experience them, which means to practice them, to just take them through different keys, And Dr. Mouse, with things like inversions, like if you're just looking to, again, with bass inversions, take a tune and practice, doing bass inversions. It's as simple as that. If you're looking for chord inversions, you can interleave this with some scale practice. I love this thing. You can actually do this with like scale practice and repertoire practice. So I have 3 things. I have my chord inversions. I'll have a scale. We'll do like a diminished scale. And we'll have a tune. And I want to work on inversions for that, but whatever, we're just doing that. We'll do interleave practice. So I'll like actually time myself. I'll give myself 5 minutes each. So I'll just work on the inversions in as many keys as slowly as possible. That's way too fast, just as an example. Then I'll work on for 5 minutes. Timer goes off, I change scales. For 5 minutes. Timer goes off, I change tune. Timer goes off, I go back to inversions. Maybe a different key this time. 5 minutes. Timer goes off, I go back to scales. Maybe a different diminished scale this time. Timer goes off, I go back to the tune. Maybe I do it a different tempo. Maybe I do it stride or something. Some kind of different technique, right? Timer goes off, I go back to inversions. 5 minutes. Scales, 5 minutes. This interleave practice is a great way to help lock things in because you're forced to forget things and then have to remember them, and it helps to really absorb the material a little bit faster. So if you're working on multiple things in a practice session, don't do a big block of one thing and a big block of another and a big block of another, and that's it. See if you can take those 3 things and do it in smaller chunks, but just repeat them 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Federico says, like a guy training at the gym. Yeah, it's like, it would be like your like splits, right? Like your push pull legs kind of split, right? Thank you, Chris. Dijak says, what's an inversion? That's a great question. If I have a C major triad here, this is the root position of a C major triad. If we take the C, which is the bottom note, and we put it up an octave, this is the first inversion of a C major triad. If we take now the E and put it up an octave, that's the second inversion of a C major triad. We do it again and we're back to the root position. So that's the basics of what a triad is. When we're doing it with bass inversions, it's like that, but it's, thought of as like C over G, C over E, C over C, or just C. Dr. Mouse says, another question, kind of off topic. What's a good way to practice playing faster dexterity? Go slow. Yeah, slower scale practice, slower arpeggio practice. That's the key. It's not sexy, but it's true. Yeah, our Open Studio Proers are and some longtime pianists are commenting here about slow practice. So Dr. Mouse, like, Peter Martin, who was on the stream earlier, I'm sure he left because he got bored. But we had a discussion a couple weeks ago about his practice routine, and he goes ridiculously slow. Like, I was like, that's how slow you practice? He's like, oh yeah, slower even. And he has an incredibly crisp, fast eighth note. Blue Monk says, how do I rely less on my eyes for stride with the left hand? You got to be able to do it without thinking about it. You got to be able to do it while you're eating a sandwich, while you're sending a text message. I've heard this before somewhere. But yeah, you have to be able to not, you're using peripheral, or you can practice with your eyes closed too. That's a big help, just to get the spatial awareness of your keyboard. Yeah, you could do that. You can go slowly and practice with your eyes closed. Sorry not to look. Close your eyes. Go slow. And fail, by the way. You're going to make mistakes, and that's good. That's how you learn. Faber says, what's the general point of inversions compared to usual chords? If they contain the same notes and sound the same. Well, what's the difference, Faber, between this and this? It's a whole different feeling. That's just C to F, right? C to F, root position. Just put the 5 in the bass for the C. Something about that is emotionally different, right? Listen to the difference. Grounded. Not so grounded. You know what I mean? There's something that's different. Or what if we change the F? The 5 in the bass on the F, or with the 3rd in the bass. There's something that is different with the texture of the root movement when you do that. Thank you, Rydberg. Appreciate that. The Beyond Name says, should bass players be mindful of piano inversions during play? Yes. So what we're doing here is bass inversions. So this would be something that you could improvise with a good bass player that's listening. Like the bass player that I play with the most is our friend Bob DeBoo here at Open Studio. Bob hears everything. So if I were to play an inversion on a change, he would have it within half a second, and then if we were to go back to it, he would come back to it immediately, right? That's what a good bass player is able to do when we suggest things. And by the way, they can also suggest inversions, and we should be able to go with them, right? So when we hear that the bass player is playing an E over the C, or a C over the E instead of the C, we're not going to be down here like we want to go with them and make sure that we're playing cool stuff that they're doing. Off of them. And so oftentimes this would be worked out as part of like a composition or arranging process, but you can do this on the fly if everybody's paying attention. Thank you, JFB. Chayla makes a great point here. Always feel the note under your fingers before you play. That way you'll never miss. It's great. If you can get, like when you're doing stride, even if you're looking at the stride, like don't even worry about not looking. But if you want to get into the position above the key before you actually play it, right? So you don't want to be like, if it's really, really fast, you're just going to be kind of throwing everything at the kitchen sink. But if you have a more medium thing, you want to get your hand in position before you have to play it, right? So your arm is actually moving faster than the rhythm of the stride because you're just a split second before you're putting your hand over, feeling the key. Exactly. Okay. I think this one's it for me. Thank y'all. Super fun. Don't forget to download that PDF. Don't forget to go to openstudiojazz.com if you want to go on a deeper dive. We've got a 14-day free trial. You can sign up for 2 weeks. It's totally free, and you can leave if you don't like it. But it is really an amazing resource. I encourage you to go check it out. I will see you in 2 weeks from today when we'll have another guided practice session. Until then, happy practicing. Cheers. Thank you for all the great chat as well. Later, y'all.